Welcome to another episode of I'm Probably Wrong About Everything. On today's episode, we take a special trip down to the Urban Safari Rescue Society, where we meet with Sharon Doucette, the executive director of that organization. She shares with us the history, as well as some of the animals that you can see down there, and that they also need our help. This organization is able to run predominantly through donations, and due to COVID, they're having troubles getting money in. You can support them either by visiting their GoFundMe page under Urban Safari Rescue Society, or taking a trip down there for yourself and seeing what it's all about. Once again, they appreciate any donations that you can provide, and you're helping to protect these animals, as well as provide some education on them. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoy. All right. Well, thank you for having us today at the Urban Safari Rescue Society.
Great.
For those of us listening at home, what exactly is this place?
Well, thank you for coming, first of all. Urban Safari Rescue Society is a registered charity, and our mission is to rescue and provide sanctuary for unwanted exotic animals. So we have roughly 350 animals here, ranging from tarantulas, reptiles of all kinds, birds, and some small mammals, including a couple of small pigs, Vietnamese potbelly pigs. So that's part of our mission. Now, these animals are former pets that people had, and it's surprising what people will actually take on as a pet. It's we shake our heads quite often, but you know, their life changed, or the animal changed. Something happened, or they just. A lot of times they're moving, they can't take the animal with them, or they got bored of it, because many, especially reptiles, they just sit in one place and you can't cuddle them, you can't train them tricks. You know, there's not that same social bond that there is with dogs and cats. So people tire of them. So they come here, and then we look after them. And then the other part of our mission is to educate the public. We have a very extensive educational program that's both outreach and in-house. And so the animals become, in essence, teaching tools and ambassadors. So we go to schools and libraries and festivals and private homes for birthday parties and all kinds of places. And we'll take some animals with us, usually about 15 or so. We try and cover all the animal families that we can. And we do an hour-long presentation and teach people about animals in general, animal-related topics such as habitat and adaptation and defense and animal characteristics, conservation. And also one of our messages is most of these animals do not make appropriate pets, so don't go there.
Right.
You know, don't become part of the problem.
Yeah. Don't buy a boa constrictor.
No. So yes, we have our outreach program. Then we have in-house programs. Well, these were pre-COVID, of course. Right. So we had spring break camps, summer camps, nature club for kids 6 to 12, junior zookeeping for teenagers, because teenagers are starting to think about what kind of careers they like, and oftentimes they'll think, oh, I want to be a vet, or I want to work with animals. So there's a huge range of careers that someone can have working with animals that don't require 7 years of university as a vet. Being a vet is a very fine thing, but you know, there's a big, broader world out there. Right. So So we go over that with the kids, with the teenagers. We teach them safety around animals, pest control, again, animal characteristics, how to care for animals in captivity, because if you're bound and determined to have an animal as a pet, you better know how to look after it. So those are the types of things that we cover. So that's us in a nutshell. Big nutshell.
Yeah, no, that's good. So how long have you been working? Because it used to be called Cinema Zoo, correct?
Well, yes, that's part of our history. So
Right.
Cinema Zoo was started by a man named Gary Oliver. And Gary started the first animal agency in Canada. And Cinema Zoo would provide animals for TV, film, and photography. And Gary didn't have all the animals necessary for each project, but he would source them out from people who did have them. And then he would make sure that the animal was treated humanely on set, because that is a huge issue, and that the people got paid, because that is also a huge issue. So he had Cinema Zoo for many, many years, but then he started acquiring animals because people realized that he had a vast knowledge of animals. He's been working with and learning about animals since he was 7 years old. And he's worked at the Toronto Zoo, and he's worked for the Royal Ontario Museum and various places. So he has this vast knowledge. So people started bringing him their animals, saying, please take my boa constrictor. I can't deal with it any longer. So he did, and he was getting more animals, and then realized that he needed a broader organization to look after these animals. So he founded Urban Safari Rescue Society, and that's where it grew from. Now Gary, he's still with us. He's retired now, but he's still with us. But he sold Cinema Zoo to someone else several years ago. So Cinema Zoo still is out there doing that type of work, but it's completely severed from Urban Safari Rescue Society.
Right. So you guys aren't involved in movies or anything like that?
No,
anymore?
we do get the odd call from a film company or a TV or whatever about some animal. We just recently got one about they want a rabbit for some shots for a movie in Squamish. So we do get that from time to time, and we'll try to accommodate them if possible, and we'll send one of our animal handlers with the animal to make sure that the animal is treated properly, and it's not, a reptile in a freezing situation, or being make sure the animal isn't asked to do something that is against its nature.
Right.
Yeah.
How long have you been involved in this for, Sharon?
I think 8 or 9 years.
Yeah. What made you say, I want to be an ambassador for these animals?
Well, it's an unusual story for me. I don't have a background in animals. I'm actually a photographer, and I was a photographer for 25 years, and worked as a commercial advertising photographer and a photographer for newspapers. I worked for Canadian Press and various newspaper chains. And in my work as a newspaper photographer, I got to know Gary, and he's a very colorful man with a colorful story. The animals were fascinating to me, and I've always had an interest and worked in the environmental and conservation sphere. I have volunteered with various organizations throughout my life. So the newspaper world is dying out, and I got downsized and, was looking at a career change, because photography as a profession is no longer really a good avenue. So I was going through that process, and I happened to run into Gary in a parking lot and told him that I was taking some graphic design courses, and he lit up like a Christmas tree and wanted me to work on a graphic design project that he had. So I started doing that, and then I started volunteering here, and I volunteered for about 6 months. Full-time while I was on EI. I figured, why not? And then I stayed. They hired me, and I just started as kind of office administrative type work, and then it grew into executive director, and that's where I'm at now.
Wow. Yeah, that's impressive. So is that mostly how this place functions, is through volunteerism?
Yeah, we have a fairly large volunteer base. We do have staff because these animals need specific care on a specific schedule. You can't always rely on volunteers for that. So we do have a few volunteers, a few staff. There's 3 staff right now. Pre-COVID, we had a larger staff, and we had to lay them off. And we had to close our doors to all of our volunteers as well, because we needed to limit, the 3 of us that were left, we needed to limit our exposure to COVID, because if one of us gets COVID, we were very concerned that everything would be shut down and then the animals suffer. So it's kind of like a long-term care home. So we had to be very, very cautious, and we still are. So we've called back a few of our regular volunteers to help us work with the workload, and that's going pretty well. So we do have a very large volunteer base, and we're always willing to take on new volunteers, but volunteers must be at least 16 years old.
Okay.
We cannot take children, and we cannot take children with their parents supervising. We've tried that a couple of times, and it never works out. Even if the parent is absolutely, for sure, we will do it. Yeah. We will be right there with. No, it never works out. Yeah. So we just say no to that completely.
Okay. Well, can you tell us a little bit about the animals? So you mentioned that there's not just reptiles here. There's, did you say Vietnamese?
Potbelly pigs. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So those aren't obviously from around here. Those were surrendered as well.
Yeah. Well, one of the potbelly pigs is Gary's own pig.
Oh.
The other one, Bonnie, she came to us from a family in Squamish. It's an interesting story. The teenage daughter at the time was learning how to drive, and she got her license, and the first thing she did once she got her license was to go to a pig breeder and buy a baby potbelly pig. She brought it home, and her parents kind of went wide-eyed and went, what were you thinking? Yeah. The pig was maybe 8 inches to a foot long. It was small, like a size of a cat. But they grow, of course.
Yeah, and eat.
And they had the pig in their house for a couple of months, and that's fine. You can have a pig in your house. They're very smart, and you can train them just like a dog, and they're actually very, very clean animals.
I hear they're very personable too.
They're very personable, yes. They have the intelligence of roughly a 3-year-old child.
Wow.
So
how do they figure things like that out behaviorally in an animal?
They give them behavior tests. There's lots of studies and research done on various animals, especially the animals that have more contact with people and have become domesticated at some level. So they have all kinds of testing and behavioral studies that they've done.
And that actually kind of brings up another question. And you had mentioned that reptiles don't make the best pets. Dogs are domesticable, right?
Yeah,
because we can raise them and they become good pets. But other animals, like for example an elephant, you can tame them, but you can never domesticate them.
That's right.
Right? So is that what we see in a lot of these animals here? Is it because they're not really domesticable that's why they end up here?
Well, they end up here for quite a variety of reasons, but the reptiles, it depends on the species too. I mean, we're dealing with a couple hundred different types of species here. So some species are non-aggressive, others are very aggressive. Some are very sedentary, meaning they don't move. The alligator snapping turtles, they don't move. They sit in one spot for months on end. That's their natural, normal behavior. So it depends on the behavior of the animal. And no, they cannot be domesticated. That's just not, it's not in their behavior to be domesticated. Dogs and cats, it's taken millions and millions of years for them to evolve, and then tens of thousands of years to be domesticated. So they have larger brains, they have more I want to say thinking capacity, but that's not really the term. But reptiles have a very basic brain. We've heard the term reptilian brain. Well, it's very true. They have a very basic brain. So they rely very heavily on sense of smell and their instinct.
Right.
So whatever their instinct is what they're going to do, and that's never going to change.
Right. Well, who seems to be, when I came here with my family, I love the tortoises. Who seems to be the most popular animal here for visitors?
Well, again, it changes. It depends on the people. The tortoises are very popular. The pigs are very popular. People love the idea of sugar gliders. Sugar gliders are a small, furry, very cute animal, but they're nocturnal,
right.
So they're asleep when people come to visit. And people like lizards, and a fewer percentage like the snakes. There are, kids who are just absolutely fascinated with snakes. And then there's an even smaller percentage who are fascinated by tarantulas. So it's this fascination that spurs people to get these animals as pets.
Right.
But sometimes it's not fully thought through. And people who have allergies, there's lots of people who have allergies to dogs and cats or whatever. Reptiles don't trigger any allergies. So if a person has an allergy but they desperately want a pet, a reptile can be a good option for them, as long as it fits with their lifestyle and they've thought the whole situation through.
Do you guys have alligators here, or not alligators, but little caiman crocodiles?
No.
Okay.
No.
Because my next question is: are any of these pets, are they illegal pets to own? Or are these all legal pets that have been surrendered?
They're all legal. There is there is a legislation in British Columbia called the Controlled Alien Species Act, and there are about 1,800 animals on that list that are illegal for private ownership. So, the Vancouver Zoo or the Vancouver Aquarium, they're allowed to have those because they have a CAZA permit. That's Canadian Aquarium Zoo Association, and it's a very involved process to get that permit. But no private ownership is allowed of these animals, and that includes big cats, crocodilians, venomous snakes, constrictor snakes over a certain length, some venomous lizards, and I think that's about it. So we don't have those things here. We do have animals that require a permit. Some animals require a permit from Fish and Wildlife, so they provide us the permit so that we're allowed to keep the animals, and that some of those include the alligator snapping turtles, I think 1 or 2 big snakes that we have, a couple turtles species that we have, things like that.
It sounds like it's mostly regulated because of how dangerous
Yes.
the animal is.
Yeah.
Correct? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That legislation came in specifically because those animals on the list are deemed to be a public hazard.
Yeah. Well, we were talking with one of the volunteers earlier, and how I think it was last winter they had found a cheetah or something in the mountains. Is that correct?
Yeah, I vaguely remember something like that. Yeah, and I think it was 1.5 years ago we got a call from conservation officers. They found in a house in Vancouver many venomous snakes. Now those snakes all would have been euthanized. And if conservation officers find an animal that's on the list, chances are, not always, it doesn't always happen like that, but chances are it will be euthanized because it is a public hazard.
Right.
And even though there is the law, people still have these things in their basements or wherever. It's a bit shocking.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the reasons that, I find these animals so fascinating is the scare factor. And when we think of horror movies and haunted houses, we think of spiders and snakes. Why are humans so afraid of animals like snakes and spiders?
Well, I think, now this is maybe my personal opinion, but I think it comes down to a primordial fear and awareness. So, early man lived with these things. They were in their environment, and very quickly they learned that they were a danger. So they learned to stay away from snakes, or to live with snakes in a way that didn't become a danger. Same with spiders, that sort of thing. So I think it over, extended many, possibly millions of years, that knowledge, that feeling, that awareness became ingrained in us, and so we just have this natural fear, which is a good thing. It protects us.
Well, it's interesting how we use stories to create meaning, and by attaching this, scary imagery to these animals, that's our way of saying, stay away from them. Right?
Yeah.
So other than humans, who is the most dangerous animal in here, would you say?
Other than humans? Most dangerous animal. Geez. Most of them are pretty good. We have a couple of snakes that they're not venomous, they're constrictor snakes, but they're very aggressive, and they'll just bite you for fun. That's their go-to thing. Is as soon as you kind of walk near them or whatever, they'll strike at you. One of them is a Hog Island boa, who's a very nasty guy. He's a boa constrictor, but a smaller version than the red-tailed boa, and he's very, very aggressive. So we have to be very careful when feeding him and cleaning him and that sort of stuff.
Have you ever been bitten?
I haven't. Well, I've only been bitten by really minor things.
Yeah.
One of our staff, Julie, she's been bitten by all kinds of animals because she's always handling them, and she's always, picking them up and talking to them and whatever.
Right.
And then they bite her. I have had a boa constrictor strike at me, but he just tapped me with his nose. It was a warning.
Oh.
But he didn't actually bite, so thank goodness for that.
So they'll like kind of hit you with their nose to warn you? Is that?
Sometimes, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
That's interesting.
If you're doing something
that's thoughtful, right?
Yeah. Yeah. We'll consider it thoughtful. But yeah, sometimes they'll do that. If you're doing something that's alarming them or not making them feel comfortable, they're going to send you a message to back off.
So a lot of these animals here, are they endangered? Are there any?
We have a few species that are endangered.
Okay.
We have some spotted turtles, which are native to they're native to Canada, but sort of Ontario, parts of Quebec, parts of Manitoba. So we have a few of those here, and we were talking to Fish and Wildlife a while back to see if they could be transported to a breeding program in Ontario, but we haven't heard back about that. The Hog Island boa, it's on the critically endangered species list because in the 80s, the Hog Island boa is native to a small group of islands off of Central America. And in the 80s, biologists sort of discovered the flora and fauna of those islands, and then animal collectors went onto the island and realized that the Hog Island boa it's a beautiful looking snake, and it doesn't grow to be as big as the red-tailed boa. So they literally took almost all of the adult snakes off the island to become breeders in the pet trade. And
that's the only place in the world
that's the only place in the world where they exist. So they became part of the international pet trade. Since then, those islands have become a marine reserve, not because of the Hog Island boa, but because of other animals. Mm-hmm. And as a result, the numbers of Hog Island boas has come up, but they're still on the critically endangered species list at the moment. Let's see, crested geckos. Crested geckos are a super common reptile pet. They're a small, beautiful lizard, but they were considered extinct in the wild. They're native to small islands, New Caledonia in the South Pacific. And I forget why they were killed off there. But they're very popular worldwide. There's many people that breed them. So they're not on the critically endangered species list as such, but in the wild environment, they are. There was a biology survey done about 10, 12 years ago, and I think they found a small handful that are still on the island of New Caledonia. Yeah, there's a few others too that we have.
Well, we talk about coral reefs and the sort of everything is a system and it works together.
Yeah.
So why do our ecosystems and our earth, for that matter, why do we need these animals? Because you mentioned extinction and...
Yeah. Well, every animal, whether we like it or not, whether we are interested in it or not, whether we feel comfortable about it or not, every animal on the face of the earth has a reason for being. These things have evolved over millions of years, and they're continuing to evolve. So whether they are an apex predator or further down on the food chain or at the very low end of the food chain, they have a reason for being, including insects. There's more insects in the world than anything else, and they are, the bottom platform for most other life forms that rise above it. So yeah, they are part of our ecosystem. They are part of our habitat. And we are also animals. Some people may disagree with that, but we are, and we are dependent on the earth. We're dependent on ecosystems to feed us, to provide the oxygen that we breathe, to provide all the materials that you need in your life to survive. They all come from the earth. They don't come from anywhere else. So every animal has its reason for being. It has their place in the world, and we need to respect that. We need to respect that in a very deep sense, not just, oh yeah, I like snakes or whatever, but people have to have a more deeper understanding and a deeper respect.
So when you talk about respect, it comes to mind, what can we do as individuals, as a society, to not only protect these animals, but protect their environments? Because that's what seems to be what is threatening these animals.
Yeah.
Is our activity with them.
Yeah, absolutely is. Well, it's a very complex issue, and when you look at it at a broad sense, it becomes overwhelming. But there's so much that can be done, and each person can choose what direction they want to spend their time, effort, and money to preserve the overall ecosystems of the earth. So you can do things like, well, just very basically donate to organizations that you feel are going to make the best use of your dollars. You can go clean up a shoreline or clean up a swampy area. If you're out in the wilderness, don't take animals out of their environment. We hear this story quite often. My family went camping and we saw these really pretty turtles and we took one home and it's so cute. Well, no, don't do that.
Right.
Take pictures, observe, enjoy, but leave it there. That's its home. It lives there. Don't take it away.
Yeah.
And pollution, and land use, and water and air pollution. I mean, there's so many different aspects because the earth is infinitely complex.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and that's another thing, is what comes to mind is the deforestation in the Amazon.
Yeah.
And I think we're not aware of just how big a deal that is. Is that still going on at a mass rate, the deforestation of the Amazon rainforest?
Yeah, I think it is. I don't follow that too closely, but it's my understanding that yes, it continues to go on. And okay, now we're veering into my personal opinion again, but
which is perfectly fine.
But these are not black and white issues. People in the Amazon want economic security, and they want, pardon me, they want a future for their families and extended families. So how are they going to get that? Well, there's some land here.
Right.
I can have a farm, or I can raise some cattle, and I'll make some money. So let's burn down a few acres and put our backs into it and do that. Well, there goes a few more acres of the Amazon River. So can these people make a decent living and thrive and prosper? And can they do that and also allow the Amazon to thrive as an ecosystem? So now you're looking at different ways of people making money. Is that through ecotourism? Is that through environmentally sustainable harvesting of medicinal plants and so on? Is that some sort of high-tech sorry, my brain went blank there.
That's okay.
Is that some sort of high-tech industry that is helicoptered into the area and training people? These are very broad, very complex issues, but we have to take a look at all of them and continue to work towards the end goal of preserving our ecosystems, preserving our land, water, and air systems, and preserving our animal populations, because they're being devastated.
Right. Do you see, and that kind of brings up the next thing, is we talk about Greenpeace and all this stuff, which is through a Western lens. Do you see a level of awareness increasing, or are we kind of like in a doldrums in terms of our level of advocacy for sustainability and things like that, or are we getting better?
Well, it feels at various times that we are getting a bit better in terms of our awareness. And then it sort of lulls, drops off, people become more involved in other issues or what have you. I think that the difficulty among many is to have that level of awareness, that level of work and care and doing sustainable over generations.
There's not a quick fix.
There is no quick fix. No quick fix.
Because we didn't get here overnight either.
No.
Right?
No, we certainly didn't. And there is no quick fix, but there's no, it's something that has to be continuously taught generation over generation over generation.
Do you think we're getting there?
I think we've started.
Okay.
I think we've started. I mean, various environmental organizations, the Suzuki Foundation and Greenpeace and others made a very valiant start years ago in the 60s and so on. And now it's sort of the second and third generation of environmentally aware people, but it needs to continue, and it needs to broaden over the whole globe, all countries, all cultures. We can feel kind of smug in our Western culture, but we are the biggest polluters in the world.
Yeah. And the biggest here in Canada, or BC, I think we're the #1 exporter of coal.
Yeah.
Which is like the worst burning fossil fuel.
Yeah.
Well, what is the most important lesson you have learned from the animals here?
Oh, I've learned so many different lessons. I really enjoy learning and knowledge. So I really enjoy learning about the different animals and learning different facts about them and characteristics and stuff like that. I also really enjoy the teaching aspect of teaching people about them and getting them to be fascinated, to be aware, so that they can go out and do their own independent research, and maybe something special will grow from that. But in terms of just the animals themselves, I've learned that the animals do have, I almost want to say personality, but I'm a bit hesitant to say that because animals don't have the same thoughts and feelings and so on that people do, and that's a mistake that many people make, is that they attribute human feelings and thoughts to animals, and they simply don't have them.
We humanize them.
They humanize them, exactly, and it's simply not the case. But animals do have their quirks, their individual personalities. You know, we've got 5 sugar gliders. So each one of those sugar gliders has its own personality or its own way of how it reacts to whatever is happening around it. Some are shy, some are braver, some are more drawn to human contact, others fight against it and you know, will just bite you.
Yeah.
You know, so it's important to get to know each animal individually, so that you can work with it safely, and you have some idea. You can read its behavior. You can see, okay, the iguana is bobbing its head like mad. Yeah, that's really funny, but really he's telling you, back off.
Yeah.
You're in my zone, and I don't like it. So you need to be able to read those signs so that you can be safe around the animals. You don't cause the animals undue stress, and everybody can exist happily.
Right. I like that. Well, that kind of feeds into my next question of what do you think that they can teach all of us? And it's almost like we meet one iguana, we've met one iguana, right? Kind of like how we interact with humans. Everybody is an individual, right? So you'd mentioned about the COVID outbreak and how it's impacted you.
Yeah.
How can someone help support the Urban Safari Refuge Society?
Well, we have started a GoFundMe page. So if people want to make a donation, there's many different avenues where you can make a donation. So if you want to make a donation through GoFundMe, and that's particularly good if there's people out there who are not from Canada.
Right.
So
we have some listeners in South Africa. So
fantastic!
Yeah.
Fantastic. One of our volunteers volunteers every year for 4 or 5 months at a animal reserve in Namibia.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and she has for the last 9
we have
9
listeners
years.
from there as well.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. So shout out to Namibia.
Yeah,
and South Africa.
Absolutely. Yeah. They're doing incredible work. So yeah, GoFundMe. So you can just go on to the GoFundMe page and type in the search bar Urban Safari Rescue Society, and our campaign will come up. So you can make a donation there. You can visit our donation page on our website. Our website is www.urbansafari.ca. And because we're a registered charity, we can issue tax receipts. That would be for Canadians. So if you go through the donation page on our website, make the donation, the tax receipt is generated automatically, and then you just print it off. We've had We just the other day we had a 10-year-old boy named Ethan come by with his parents. He got $25 for his birthday, and he wanted to donate it to us, and that just nearly made me cry.
Yeah.
Because that is just so kind.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. We can learn a lot from Ethan.
Yes. That kind of community generosity is just overwhelming sometimes. What else? We have recently opened our doors to the public so people can come by. We're open 11 till 4 every day except for Tuesdays and Wednesdays. So people can come in. They can visit the animals, learn about them, ask questions. It's $10 per adult, $6 per child over the age of 3, and $6 per senior, and that includes tax. We just ask that everyone must wear a mask, a face mask. So there's that. We are doing our outreach program by Zoom. So we've gone online. So if somebody wants to book us for a summer camp, daycare, birthday party, family gathering, whatever, we can do our hour-long presentation online using Zoom or any other platform that people want to use. And we've done them for people in Australia, Singapore, Cambodia, all over Canada, all over the States. It's really quite cool.
Awesome.
And it's a great way, if you've got family in many corners of the world, it's a great way to bring everybody together for, Johnny or Jill's birthday, and have a visit. Get that FaceTime visit with everybody, and then also learn about animals and animal issues. Yeah.
Do you guys have any social media, like an Instagram or anything like that people can follow you on?
Yeah, we have a Facebook page, it's Urban Safari Rescue. We have Instagram. We have Twitter. I think that's about it.
Awesome. Well, last question. So you've talked about the history and how you got involved with this organization. What's next for you guys once things get back to normal in terms of COVID? What's the future plan for the Urban Safari Rescue Society?
Well, that's a big question. It's a bit uncertain right now because of COVID. So, that's changed everybody's plans in the world, of course. We do have very ambitious plans of building an ecology center. And the ecology center would be a bigger facility. It would encompass more animals, because that would allow us to take in more animals, more surrenders, and it would allow us to broaden and innovate our education program. So we're really hoping that that can come to pass. If there's anybody out there who wants to get involved and help us bring that to fruition, that would be amazing. We're looking for people who have experience and skill and contacts and money.
Yes, the greatest resource right now. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time, and we'll be sure to include our donations. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. It was real fun.
Okay.
It was really fun.
And what was your last name, Sharon?
Doucette.
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 Okay. Thanks again, Sharon.
You're very welcome. Thanks for coming.